wondered what Ronald Reagan and Walt Disney had in common, the answer is they were both rat bastards that would turn their back on their friends and co-workers in Hollywood when the government came knocking in 1947. For Walt Disney himself, that was just a small piece of a 25 to 30 year partnership with the FBI as an informant. The story being laid out very clearly back in 1993 by the New York Times. In that article, they had communications between Disney and Hoover in July 1936 when Hoover said, "I am indeed pleased that we can be of service to you in affording you a means of absolute identity throughout your lifetime." The FBI itself would go on to make tweaks in Disney projects. That's something that happened more than once. All this would come to a head in October of 1947 when 14 friendly witnesses would speak to the House Un-American Activities Committee in Washington, D.C. Among them were Reagan, Walt Disney, and Gary Cooper. For Walt, his main focus was the 1941 animator strike that I talked about in the video linked to this one. He was asked, "Was it your opinion that the strike was instituted by members of the Communist Party to serve their purposes?" He said, "Well, it proved itself so with time, and I definitely feel it was a communist group trying to take over my artists, and they did take them over." In actuality, the animators just went on strike in 1941 because they were being treated like shit and underpaid, right? And that gets called communism. Also, interesting aesthetic Walt went with here for his testimony. Speaking of which, this is a guy that less than a decade earlier was happy to host one of the most successful propagandists in history, Nazi filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl, at his studio and meet with her, and then after the fact he would say, I didn't know who she actually was. One of the people Walt would label a communist was labor leader Herbert Sorrell. There would never be any evidence of Herbert actually having real ties to the Communist Party. Here he is with Reagan himself years earlier, but Walt testified, quote, "Believed at the time that Mr. Sorrell was a communist because of all the things I had heard and having seen his name appearing on a number of commie front things." Testifying there with Walt would be the president of the Screen Actors Guild at the time. He was made president in March of 1947, Ronald Reagan. He would interview with the FBI less than a month after that. Again, in actuality, this was just a way for the government to find out people that actually were fighting for the rights of workers. One of the people at the forefront here was Roy Cohn, who was the right-hand man to McCarthy. Roy was a closeted gay man. He would persecute gay people and communists in the 40s and 50s under McCarthy. Then he would go on to take Donald Trump under his wing. Despite their long friendship, as Roy Cohn lay dying of AIDS in 1986, Donald Trump would turn his back on him.